Kia ora and welcome to today's webinar, which is about packing units in Vernon CMS. Today we're going to look at what packing units are, the benefits of using them, how to create them, how to give them a location, how to put objects in them, and how to manage them. A packing unit is a movable location, such as a box, a pallet, or a crate, that's used for storing or transporting objects. Packing units make location management easier. They're like objects in a way that they can be moved. They store their own current location, inventory location, usual location, and location history. And when you move a packing unit to a location, the objects inside it are automatically moved as well. You can record information about your cardboard boxes, plastic tubs, and cylinder boxes, such as the construction, dimensions, and purposes. Packing units are different from locations, as they're created in the packing unit file, not the location file. And the packing unit file is not hierarchical. So you can't have packing units inside packing units, although there are some ways to achieve a similar effect, which I'll share with you. There are 3 steps to setting up a packing unit and putting objects in it. Create the packing unit, move the packing unit to a location, and then move the objects into the packing unit. To create a packing unit, you open the packing unit identification window from the navigator on the left-hand side of Vernon. If you already have this window open on an existing packing unit record, you can click the New button on the toolbar. So now I can enter the details about my packing unit. In this case, it's a general purpose storage box. So I will start by giving it a category. And in this case, it's storage. And the type is general purpose. So general purpose storage box. I'll give it a label. So this is the name. I will call it Gen 6. I'll give it a description, a master storage box with a lid. And then I'll enter some information about the measurement. So the measurement type is dimensions, and then the actual measurement is 500 by 500 by 200 millimeters. On the construction tab, you can record various information about the construction. In this case, all I'm going to enter is who it was made by, which is Carr McLean. Whenever we create a packing unit, we need to give it a location before we can put objects into it. If we look at the location tab of the packing unit window, I can't enter a current location directly into these fields. That's because we have to perform a movement transaction, which will update the location history, just like with object records. However, there is no move button on the packing unit window, like there is with object records. The movement transaction process isn't supported here. And that's because the system relies on the bulk move process to automatically update both the location of the packing unit and the objects that it currently contains. So whenever we want to move a packing unit to a current location, we need to use the bulk move tool. However, we can give the packing unit a usual location. So this is where the packing unit is usually located. So let's say it's normally in room 1 of the offsite store. So now when we move the packing unit with bulk move, we can use a special reason called usual location, and Vernon will automatically default to room 1. So I'll save the packing unit record. Saving the record will also close that particular record. It's important to close the packing unit record, otherwise it will be locked and Vernon won't be able to move it if we try to move it with bulk move while it's still open. It's good practice whenever you're using bulk tools to close your data entry windows. That just prevents issues occurring. So I'll close this window now, and then I'll open bulk move, which is under Tools, Location Functions, Bulk Move. The top part of the bulk move window is the things that we are moving, whether objects or packing units. And then the bottom part of the window is where we're moving them to and why. So let's move this packing unit. In this packing unit field here, I'll enter Gen 6, and then I'll enter the new location details. So the reason that we're moving it is we're moving it to its usual location. So I will choose usual location as the reason. I will enter who's authorized the movement, who's actually moving it. And then because we entered on the packing unit record a usual location of room 1, now when I click into the location field here, it will default to usual location because I've chosen usual location as a reason here. And so this is automatically going to move it into room 1. So I'll click OK to run that bulk move. And the bulk move was successful. So now when I look at that packing unit record again, and I can go to the File menu, Last Access Record to open it. When I look at the Location tab, we've now got a current location entered there with the reason and what the usual location is, which we entered earlier. So we've put the packing unit in room 1, and so now we can put objects into it. If we were just moving one object record, we could do this on the object location window and just move it into that packing unit, but we're going to move several objects into the packing unit. And so we'll use bulk move because we can use it to move several objects anywhere, whether it's a location or a packing unit. Let's go into bulk move again. So Tools, Location Functions, Bulk Move. And this time I'm going to enter the objects here, and I'll be saying down here that they're going into Gen 6. So the objects that I want to move are some woven fans. So I'll select my woven fan records. And down here, I will say that the reason that they're moving is usual location. They're usually located in Gen 6. I'll say who's authorized it, who's moving it. And when I click into the packing unit field, because I said the reason that they were moving is usual location, it's going to default here to usual packing unit. And that's going to be really useful in future, but the first time that we move objects into a packing unit, we need to specify the packing unit. So I will enter Gen 6 there. And that's defaulted to Gen 6's usual location, and I can click OK. And run that bulk move. So now when I look at these object records, I can see that they're currently located in this packing unit in room 1, and their usual location for these objects has also been updated to be Gen 6 in room 1. Let's say that we now need to move the packing unit into the conservation room because the objects need some treatment. We've done all the setup, we've put the objects into the packing unit, and now we're just doing a general movement of this set of objects. We don't need to actually specify the objects themselves anymore because they will be moved along with the packing unit. So our packing unit is Gen 6, and the reason that we're moving it this time is conservation. So we choose our location reason, conservation. We say who's authorized it, who's moving it. And this time we're putting the location in as the conservation room. That's where they're going to. And then I can click OK there and move those objects. that are inside that packing unit. So just by moving the packing unit, those objects will be moved as well. So now when I look at these particular object records, we can see that their usual location is still the same, but their current location has changed to the conservation room along with that packing unit. So we've finished the treatment of these object records. They've finished their time in the conservation room, and now we're going to move them back. And again, all we need to do is move the packing unit. So I'll go back into bulk move. Again, all I need to do is specify the packing unit. The reason this time is they're going back to their usual location. So I can say the reason is usual location. And if I was moving multiple packing units back to their usual location, it would move them all to those locations, even if those were multiple different locations. So whatever location is entered as the usual location on the packing unit record, if I move the packing units and I say that the reason is usual location, they'll all be moved back to whatever that location is, even if that's a different location for each packing unit. So now our objects are back in their usual location. So let's talk about creating multiple packing units. So let's say you have a set of packing units to create. What is some of the easier ways to do this, especially if a lot of the information is the same for each record? You can create multiple packing units in 3 ways. You can copy the data from the previous record. You can copy the data from a template, or you can use XML Import. Let's open our packing unit identification window, and I'm going to do a search for all my boxes where the name starts with Jen. I've entered Jen in a right square bracket, which is a search operator meaning starts with. So I'm searching for all of my packing units that start with Jen. I've just hit enter there. And so these are all of my packing units that start with Jen. So I'll just open all of those. And if we look at them, we'll see that a lot of the information, or all of the information except for the label, is the same for each object. So all that's different on each one is the name. So I'm just browsing through this list here. So all the construction information and so on. One way that we can create a similar packing unit is to use the copy from previous record function. So earlier when I created Gen 6 and I typed that information in, I was starting from scratch, but I didn't have to do that. What I could do instead is start with a record. So I've just gone back to Gen 1. And what I can do is click the new button and then click this copy button here. And that will copy from the previous record. So that's what I'll do now. I'll click new record, copy from previous record, and it's copied all of the information over except for the current location, because that still requires us to do a bulk move. So what I could do here is call this one Gen 7, save it. We've got a new blank record here, and I just click copy again, copy previous record, and I could change that to Gen 8 and just keep going. So it won't copy the current location or the objects that are inside it. So that still needs to be done. So I'm just copying my last one here, Gen 9, and I could keep going. So another way that we can do it is to create a data entry template. And this is the same for object records as well, is this copy from a template function. So I'm going to start again with Gen 1. So let's say I've come in and I've just created one new packing unit record, and that's going to be my template for all of my future packing units of this type. what I can do is go to the Edit menu, Save Record as Template. And I can either save that just for the current session that I'm working in or save it permanently in Portfolio. So I'll go Save Record as Template and choose Permanent Use. And let's give this a name, General Purpose Box. And click OK. And now I can create new records based on this template. So what I do is go to New and then Edit, Select or Maintain Template. So I'm wanting to select a template. It opens up Portfolio. I choose my template and it will copy that data to the clipboard, and then I can paste that into my new record. So I can go Edit, Paste Record from Template, and that puts that information in. And once again, I just need to change the label, for example, Gen 10, save it, and then I can just continue doing that with that information from the clipboard. So I can paste that record from the template again and keep going. So that might be sufficient if I only had 10 or so packing units to create. If I had many more than that, it might be a good idea to use XML Import. So I won't go over the whole XML Import function today because we have separate videos and articles and help information on that. I'll just show you this Excel spreadsheet that I've already prepared. So this is all of the data that I'm going to import, is just the label for each of them. So I've got a set of document boxes that I'm going to import, and the only information that I'm actually going to import is the label. So that's different for each of them. The rest of the information, like the type, the category, the measurements, is the same for each of them. So what I've done is actually specify that in the XML import configuration in Vernon. So I've already gone through the process of creating my XML file here, and I've already created the configuration. So I'll just show that to you. So I'll go into Tools, XML, XML Import Configuration, and I will do a search for my configuration, which I called Packing Unit Import Document Boxes. So the search I did just then was just searching on the name that I gave it. So if I look at the Field Mapping tab, that data that I'm going to import from the Excel spreadsheet, which goes and creates an XML file, the data that I'm importing from that XML file was just the label. The rest of the information I've set as static text, which is a type of data that you can apply to all of the records in the import. So the category, the type, the description, and so on. So I've just put the system ID where appropriate for authority fields of the particular term that I want. So S is the system ID for storage, and 5 is the system ID for document box, D is the system ID for dimensions, and then for the text fields, I've put the information in there as well. This is all ready to go, and I'll show you what that import looks like. So I'll go to XML Import, Import. So this is the actual XML import tool. I say which configuration record do I want to use, and I can click the options button there if I want and choose it, or I could type some of the words that are in the name of that configuration. And then I can just click import. So you can see if you had a very large number of packing units to create, this would be a fast way to do it. It's just going and creating all of those packing unit records. And those are them there with their own new system IDs. And the information from the Excel spreadsheet, which was the label that's been entered there, and all of that other information has been applied that we had as static text in the import configuration. As I mentioned earlier, the packing unit file is not hierarchical, so you can't have packing units within packing units. We found that hierarchical packing units introduced very significant complexities in resolving the current locations of objects. So instead, you can create a list of packing units and name that list after the larger unit. For example, you could create a list of boxes that were packing units and name the list pallet 1. And you can then use this list in bulk move. Let's take a look at how this works. Let's say all of our cylinder boxes are stored on a pallet, and the pallet is moving from one area of the museum to another. So let's open our cylinder boxes and save them as a list. So I will do a search up here for sol, a right square bracket meaning starts with, press enter, and that will bring up my 5 cylinder boxes that I have. I can now save this as a list by going to the File menu, Save as List. That will open up Portfolio, and I'm going to name this after the pallet. So I'm going to call that pallet 1. So those cylinder boxes are being saved as a list, which I've called pallet 1. And now I'm going to do a bulk move and move those cylinder boxes to another part of the museum just by using that list. So I'll go Tools, Location Functions, Bulk Move. I can click into the packing unit field, and rather than typing each individual packing unit, I can click Options, and that's going to allow me to, from this point, go into List Manager to choose my list. So I can click that list button on the authority options window to open List Manager, and then I can go File, Open Saved List. My list is called Pallet 1, and I'll click OK on List Manager, and then I've just got the items that were in that list called Pallet 1, and I can select them all and click OK. So this could potentially be hundreds of individual packing units in this list. So that's put them in my packing unit field here. This isn't a very tall table here, so if I had hundreds of packing units and I wanted to see them in a larger view, I can go to the Edit menu, View Table, and you can do this with any table in Vernon, and that will open up a larger view. So if I had hundreds of packing units, I can open up a larger view to see what packing units have been entered into this field. So we've got all of our packing units there, and now I'm going to move them, and in this case, let's just say it's temporary storage, and I'm going to move them to the mezzanine and click OK. So that's one approach to having lists of packing units that are part of a larger packing unit to help you with your location management. Another way that we can do this is to use the location notes field on the object record. We can record information about the inner packing unit on the object record. So for example, if you have a box with multiple trays inside, you could create a packing unit record for the box, and then rather than create packing unit records for each of the trays, you could enter details about the trays on the object record in the location notes field. Let's look at an example. I'm going to select my objects that I want to move, and I'm going to enter aphid because I have quite a few aphid records that I want to put into a packing unit. I'll say the reason is usual location. Bill has authorized it and I'm moving it. They're going to move into Gen 2. And in the notes field, I'm going to say tray 1. So these 20 or so aphid records are going to move into Gen 2 packing unit, and they're going to have tray 1 in the location notes field. And I could do another bulk move of another set of insects into tray 2 of the Gen 2 packing unit. So this notes field is acting as the inner unit of Gen 2. So now I will run that bulk move. And so now we'll be able to see that for those object records in the current location notes field, we have tray 1. So we've got the current packing unit being Gen 2 and the location notes says tray 1. Packing units are complex records like the object, document, and person records. And the full advanced search and reporting tools are available for packing units. Let's say we want to search for packing units that are available for an upcoming move. So we want to find all the packing units in our museum that don't have anything in them at the moment so that we can use them for our move. So I can open up advanced search on the packing unit file. And the first thing that I'll search on is their current location. So I want to know about all the packing units that are in our museum at the moment, not in the offsite store. So I will search for packing units where the current location is the Vernon Systems Museum, and it'll automatically put all the narrower locations into my search. So I have 22 packing units that are currently in the museum. I want to know which of those doesn't have any objects in it. So I can continue my search. I've got and selected, and I'll click next. And I'm going to use a select statement. And my select statement is without per underscore objects underscore display. So that's the internal field name for the objects that are currently in the packing unit. And I'll click next. And so out of the 22 packing units that I have in the museum, 15 of those don't have anything in them and are available for me to use. So I can click Finish to open those up in List Manager, and then I could add some other fields to my view here. I want to know where they are in the museum and what their measurements are so that I can figure out if they're useful to me. With List Manager open, I can go to the View menu, change fields, and I will choose the measurement reading field and the current location. And now I have a list of the packing units that are available to me, and I can go and get them if they're a suitable size or figure out how they're going to be used. We could also then copy this list to Excel. Whenever you have a list of records open in List Manager, you can copy that to Excel by going to the Edit menu, Copy to Excel with or without images, and that will open up in Excel. And I could print that, do what I needed to do with that, send it to somebody. So that's an overview of packing units in Vernon CMS.